how do I find myself with Turkish intelligence services having to explain my soy boy, kneecap meme? I don't know. But I did exactly what you said. And I was just like, at this point, what am I going to do? I can't hide it. You know what? I hate mass immigration to the West. I don't think we're culturally compatible. I think that there's serious issues with Islam. I know I'm in an Islamic country, but that's what I feel.
Lauren, thanks for coming out. First time in Charleston, first time in the Southeast, or have you been down here before?
It is. No, have I been to Florida? I feel like I've been to Texas. That's the
Southwest,
yeah. But never this side. No. Everyone's hot here. It's cool.
There's a lot of good-looking people here. Yeah. It's true.
But it's like 90% just hot women.
Yes. It is a large amount of hot women. It's very hard dating for the women, kind of opposite for the guys. They have this whole thing they talk about, like the Peter Pans in Charleston. The guys are 35 and not growing up, just kind of
I feel like we could really fix some of the problems in America if we just gave free tickets to Charleston for single men.
100%. Like the pissed off red pill bros could come down
all
here.
All come to Charleston. There are like
nice Southern girls, be happy, a
dozen blondes every bar you walk into.
Yeah,
like,
and they're nice
solid
too.
8s, solid 9s.
They're not mean-spirited women too. They're all like perfectly nice, good families.
All
for the most part.
All happy. I thought I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why is it like that here?
It's got to be the weather, the architecture, the great food. It's just a wonderful city.
It's the architecture. It just increases the vibration all around.
100%. It's great. And have you been down to the Battery or anything yet? Like the old historical housing area? Or
no, I just went straight to my hotel. But I was like in awe. I was like, why are the hotels? Why do they look like castles here? Yeah. Someone cared. Someone cared that made this town.
Exactly. I mean, there's something to be said about beautiful architecture and like how it changes behavior. And you're around beauty. You're not around this kind of ugly shit the government builds, right?
Yeah, no one's vacationing to places that look like the suburbs. No one's vacationing to like this area with the worst, like brutalist architecture. It's all going to be beautiful places. I wonder why.
Yeah. So, what have you been up to these days? You're with Tenet now, Tenet Media. Is that a full-time thing or kind of part-time?
Yeah, so I'm full-time with Tenet Media right now, which is just launched within the last year, kind of, conservative, more right-wing, but a little more nuanced outlet. You can definitely find it on the YouTubes. And I'm also doing my own stuff here and there. I'm kind of kicking off my own channel again lately. I've got a new producer that's helping me with that. So you'll see more videos on my own channel. But I've been kind of, a little quieter since being banned from all the countries. And
you were on the front lines early.
All the lists.
Yeah, you were on the front lines early. I mean, you were really covering a lot of issues from the farming murders in South Africa to the weaponized mass migration. You were covering a lot of stuff way before anyone else was. And now the Overton window's shifted. Does it feel good to be vindicated a little bit in regards to like, now you've got mainstream people talking about these issues when you went through hell?
Okay. I have people I know that kind of work more in left-wing media. And apparently in one of the like Vice boardrooms, one of the head people there looked at this colleague of mine and was like, why didn't you guys just wait 5 years? Why didn't you wait 5 years? You could have been totally mainstream. You could have not been banned from all these countries. You could have just waited. But that's never that's not how I operate. I will talk about a story before it's safe. Well, it will still ruin my career because I can't help myself. Yeah. But yeah, it's very strange to like literally be banned from countries because I did a video just saying, hey, maybe here's this idea that Renaud Camus talked about, the Great Replacement. I don't know if it's real or not, but you can decide, like, interesting idea.
Actual journalism.
Yeah, banned from countries, put on like major watch lists, slandered. I remember even I had like a senator in Australia do a speech about me in front of the Senate being like, hey, this girl discussed this subject. She shouldn't be allowed on television, so I couldn't do Sky News. I was taken off CPAC conferences for this. And then, fast forward 5 years, 6 years, whatever, and seeing Ava Villar, at CPAC on stage talking about the Great Replacement, and then that being retweeted by Elon Musk, a part of me is like, wow, it's really cool that we can have these, whether you agree with the idea or not, you could be totally like Great Replacement's fake. It's cool that we can now publicly have these conversations. That's amazing. But
like
it's
free speech.
I know, free speech. What?
Yeah.
and it should be like the most intellectual, influential people having these conversations that are deeply important. But as a good friend of mine once said, it's better to be wrong too late than right too early when it comes to actual material career and money to be made and everything. And I'm not saying that the people discussing these things now are doing it because it's clout or because it's safe. I think they've just, they actually want to talk about the ideas, and luckily they're allowed to now, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the slander thing, it was like what they did to you in the media and what they did to you and guys like Gavin was disgusting. I mean, it's criminal. And I look at, if the things were reversed, if what, you guys were people of the left or the establishment, you'd be able to see the shit out of those people because what they said was blatantly not true, slander. Right?
Yeah, and there is an interesting dynamic. Like early YouTube, I always wondered, I'm like, wow, why are all of these hit pieces we're seeing about YouTubers? You have politicians like funneling, laundering bajillions of dollars to foreign countries, doing all this criminal stuff, and yet all of these articles are slandering like random YouTubers.
Yeah.
This was very 2015, 2016, 17, right? And then it clicked. Defamation is only illegal if you're rich.
100%.
And YouTubers, you have all of the fame without the wealth and kind of the social prowess that the more elite in society have. So you had all of these kind of very normal people that had real concerns, and some of them very intelligent, but just weren't born in these wealthy families, come out, speak their mind, and then it was like free game for the media to destroy their lives. They're like, oh my gosh, these people won't even be able to afford like the consulting meeting with a lawyer for a defamation case, let alone sustain a long-form defamation case. It's
Are you saying the left doesn't care about the common man?
Oh, no one they hate more. No one they hate more, especially the media class. And it's not even, this is another interesting thing, it's not even a matter of right-left. Like,
it's establishment versus non-establishment more, right?
I don't think people realize that some of the individuals that run like major left-wing companies are quite conservative personally, and vice versa. Some of these people are just like businessmen.
Yeah.
They're just genuinely just in it to make money. And that goes for politicians too. I mean, we know this. They don't actually believe the things they're saying. It's just what's going to get me in the right position when I need to be.
100%. Whatever's convenient and will get them power is what they'll do.
Yeah, we live in a pathocracy, I think the word is. It's ruled by a small sociopathic elite.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I went into D.C. as a young lieutenant, very idealistic, was working in academia, doing research for DOD as a young guy. And I was like, read too much Tom Clancy as a kid. Mm-hmm. The most god-awful piece of shit human beings were in that city, at these schools and at these bureaucracies and stuff. Just disgusting people with no moral relativists. I guess sociopath's a good word for that, because they'll do anything. They'll say anything and do anything. They don't have morals, you know?
There's not, like they say it's like 1% to 2% of the population. So people are like, oh, well, it can't be that many. Well,
they get in certain professions.
Exactly. It's like you might have 1% to 2% of the total population, but then like 50 to 90% of the politicians are of that 1% to 2%, because that's the only way you can succeed in a lot of these circles. If you're not thinking 10 steps ahead, secretly recording people, blackmailing people, ruining careers, lying about people, then you just won't survive. And if you are like very moral and disturbed by this stuff, you'll usually just pull yourself out and be like,
fuck these guys.
I'm going to go find a different career.
Yeah. And it sucks because it's like, I don't know, we're in this time of like the Western world's, and I mean, I don't think there's been this much turmoil in hundreds of years. And I don't think there's been, this type of migration. Well,
there were a few cheeky world wars, so
that too.
But maybe like ideologically and like when it comes to the population agreeing on ideas.
That's kind of what I was getting at, is like the mass demographic shift and cultural change has happened so quickly right now. So we need good people engaged, but they're making it like impossible for good people to get engaged. And you were telling me earlier, I mean, you grew up in a pretty like working class rural family and stuff, and then you just hopped right into this stuff. Yeah,
well, my dad was very into like conservative podcasts. I have wonderful parents. The best.
I wasn't saying it like that.
Oh, no. I take working class as a compliment.
It's a good thing.
They worked their butts off, made a good life for us. Fantastic parents. But yeah, my dad was really into politics, and I never thought that I would be actually speaking to the people that I watched on my computer, that I'd be, let alone become one, right?
Yeah.
So. And that didn't happen before at any time in human history. There was definitely this prohibitive aspect of even being like a celebrity that you had a few kind of A-list big celebrities, the Humphrey Bogarts, Marilyn Monroe's, and the average person going on TikTok and becoming some sort of celebrity or political commentator, that just wasn't a thing that really happened. So this is a very interesting turn of events in human history, and I think it deeply shook and disturbed the current elites in power. They're like, we have not had the people be able to question us and discuss what we're doing at such a mass scale without our approval first, our approval of the headlines, everything. And that is why the newest kind of frontier to conquer has been the internet. And it's almost entirely conquered now. The algorithms shifted, the websites owned and restricted and, entirely controlled by either governments or corporations. But 2015, 2016, you had like this boom era where there could be full honesty from the people. And that was a terrifying thing for the current order.
So where I was getting at with that was you came up very organically quick and young. It's really interesting. Like your work you were so ahead of the curve with your documentaries and social commentary. It's amazing. And I love the fact that you did this organically and just kind of went for it. So as someone that's done that, I mean, your opinion matters way more than these kids that went to Georgetown or groomed by the establishment and stuff. Where is the next frontier? Where can we actually have free flow of ideas right now? Where do you see the opportunity?
Real life.
Real life.
It's the last. I mean, I heard you talking about this with Ryan on one of your earlier podcasts, and you guys were discussing the idea that, okay, all of the frontiers have been taken over, and now the last one is the human mind. They want to completely colonize the human mind with these ideas that, and everyone is on their phone 24/7, right? They're just sitting there, and it's like information downloads, and you are your environment. You are what you consume, and whether people like it or not, whether people think they're in control of it or not, you are not. Your algorithm, no matter who you are or how hard you are trying to avoid it, is being curated to give you a certain thought or opinion, even within the alternative spheres. Because there's money to be made even in the alternative spheres. And in some cases, people have just as much audience capture in alternative spheres as they do in the mainstream media. It's like, okay, I've got an audience that's angry about this subject. If you're a feminist, okay, they're very upset about men. If you're like red pill, they're very upset about women. I have a financial incentive to feed you content 24/7 that is going to make you more and more and more upset about this. Otherwise, I lose my job. And if you're super alternative media, there's no other job you can get, not even at a McDonald's. So the media capture of the institutions and mainstream media is far more insidious because of the wide reach and power they have and the financial political incentives behind that. But there can absolutely be media capture or audience capture on the alternative spheres as well. So the last frontier for real conversation is retreating into reality.
Get off the phone, have real conversation, read a book.
That's not to say that these conversations can't. I think it's obviously I do media, so I think it's still important. I think it's still interesting, but
it's a different era.
Take it with a grain of salt, and what you learn online, take and compare notes with the people around you. Nothing I love more than meeting someone and asking, "Can I see your YouTube algorithm?" That will give you a far more realistic approach to what's actually going on, because you'll open their YouTube algorithm. I'll ask people. I'll meet them.
How do you read the algorithm?
I'll just scroll through their front page of YouTube or their recommended videos, and it's like an entirely different reality to the one you're living. You could watch someone's algorithm, and every single video is like, white men are destroying the West, or the climate catastrophe that's happening, or it's all white nationalist stuff, black nationalist stuff, anti-woman stuff, anti-man stuff. And the thing is that individual stories that support all narratives do exist. So if you are a woman and you're online and every single one of your recommendations on your reels is another story of like how a man has abused a woman, you're going to be like, these are real stories. And they are. There are real.
But this is reality.
This is the whole world now. And that goes with the red pill stuff too. Every single story is a gold digging whore trying to steal a man's money. Woof. And you, like the energy you put out and the thoughts you have, you create reality.
It becomes toxic.
Go into a relationship thinking someone's going to be bad, you're probably going to create that sort of dynamic. So we 100%. Are creating reality with the downloads we are getting from our phones and our algorithms that are all different. We're all living in this fractured existence because of our phones. There's no consistent culture. We used to all watch or listen to the same radio show, and then we'd all discuss it. We used to all have the same information, and then we'd all discuss it. We all have different information. We all have different camera angles. Fractured. Madness.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Right? It's crazy, like, throwing on my tinfoil hat, I'm going to throw it on for a second. You think, like, the analysts looking at this stuff, they don't even have to, AI can do what people used to do, right? The guys, the little spooks on Analyst Notebook or whatever, taking all the data, AI will do 90% of that now. So it's like we're going into this time where we're being manipulated in ways we don't even know by our phones, by, government systems and stuff. It's kind of scary. I shut off just recently, maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. I went into my Twitter. You can modify the tweets that you see. You can see on your timeline and responses in your notifications. So I went into my notification settings and I shut off people who didn't have a verified email, people who didn't have a verified phone number, and people who had created their account within the last, I think it's either week or month or something. My notifications dropped by 90%. Because of the bot. Because they're all bots. Yeah. And I know they are, because obviously you can't talk too much about all the stuff that goes behind the scenes because people don't understand the consequences that happen as a result of doing that. Obviously, I know the consequences of what happens when you talk about things you're not supposed to on a mass scale. But nothing is more real right now than the existence of mass psyop influence astroturfed campaigns psychologically against the populace. And it works. Social peer pressure works. Governments know this. Corporations know this. Your feed, your notifications, curated to make you think and feel a certain way, and it is working against the majority of the population. 100%. We just had this artist on the other day, as a big kind of intellectual conservative, one of my old buddies, and he was talking about just that. He's like, the amount of psyop going on right now and the amount of like fake, kind of political movements to, give the rat the cheese and move it here it's terrifying. And what's scary though is it's less the people. So what freaks me out is less the people that aren't smart enough to figure it out. It's the people that know, but they bury their heads in the sand. Mm-hmm. Or it's become beneficial to them because there are a lot of large accounts that are getting massive boosts from these. Yeah. And this is where audience capture comes in. Do you know what audience capture is? No. It's where essentially people get addicted to the affirmation from their audience. Oh. The best creators are people you'll watch kind of have these mass cleansings of their audience. They'll see their audience going to socialist or going to like kind of crazy schizo trad life or something. And they'll be like, no, this is why you guys are wrong. And then they'll lose a bunch of followers and then regain a bunch of more kind of normal people. But some people will never do those cleanses. They'll actually disagree with some of the directions they're going, but they keep getting the affirmation. Oh. So their audience will be like, yeah, go harder on this subject. Yeah, F women, F men. And they're like, oh, the audience are really liking this. And that's a very human reaction. The cheers from the crowd, it's intoxicating. It's more intoxicating than drugs. I'm sure. I've never experienced. I'm sure it's like had. Well, just you wait. No, I've had people I know that obviously I've met a lot of big personalities, and people in the media sphere. They do drugs. Whether they're conservative or liberal. Yeah, I've tried some drugs before. Yeah. What? No, and they'll like. I've had people be like, it is a more invigorating feeling than doing a line of cocaine, getting like millions of views on your video. It's like a rock star. Yeah, it's like reading the comments, feeling it, like so it is an addiction, and then they get captured by the audience, and they create this horrendous feedback loop where it's just building on ideas that they don't even believe in anymore. Yeah. For the feedback. So the audience capture, and then the worst part is the audience capture is now they're captured by intelligence agencies, psyoping them into saying certain things. So they'll get like 1,000 feds saying, "Woo, yeah, I love this idea, keep going!" and it'll be the dumbest idea ever that's fracturing the Western world. But or even I went to American University, which is I didn't know at the time. I was like, need to go to school in D.C. and like hobnob in D.C. They had a nice campus. It's now the #1 most liberal school in America. One. Berkeley was like 15. That's how bad it was. And it's not even just the federal agencies doing stuff. The progressives are because they're collectivists, are so fucking organized. They'll meet up at a party and be like, let's go put a guy in that we'll pay him $100,000 a year to go work for some Catholic nonprofit and steer it the way we want to go. Mm-hmm. Let's go influence this dude and put they're super motivated and organized. So it's not just, it's not just the government agencies. It's the SPLC, it's the ADL, it's progressive activist groups, it's other groups, sometimes groups on the right, whatever. It's like these dudes are super organized and fucked up with how manipulative they are. It's like, holy shit.
As someone who has like a lot of Twitter followers,
you know way more than I do about this stuff.
You're just right on the nose, right on the money. You get messages all the time. I'll pay you this much money to tweet this or that idea. And if you think for a second that these protests you're seeing are completely organic, delusional,
Why
right?
don't any of them get arrested?
Yeah.
Why don't the organizers get arrested? Like they had in Denver, I had some buddies that were bartenders at a place downtown, kind of by where the protests were. So their manager had figured out through a buddy who was a cop, was like, hey, they're going to come up and fuck with your people. Like on that, they're going to go try and basically bait you into a fight. The guys in the orange jackets are lawyers. So they're going to try and set up a ability to sue the restaurant or sue you or whatever. Like they're super organized. They're so lawyered up and they have so many people in the system. That's why they don't get fucking arrested.
Yeah.
And then they'll snitch on this person or that person to go get clout with, the police or the FBI or whatever. It's so fucking complicated. And you look at like just my time having clearance and stuff. I had this really idealistic notion that like, oh, if you have a security clearance or you're an officer or whatever, like you're not going to be allowed to do certain things. You're a civil servant. They're going to we had like radical left-wing people that openly fucking hated America. They were socialists. Like, oh, the guy's got his TS and a unit, and guys were blackmailing people, doing criminal shit. Like it's a mixed bag because you have good guys and bad guys as institutions that are all fighting for power and whatever agendas. But they're just as criminal and fucked up as anyone else. Just because someone's like high up doesn't mean shit.
Absolutely. Thank you. That is so, like, I don't talk about all of this stuff publicly, but obviously I know a lot about that stuff. And all of the messed up infighting and blackmail you see on because I'm a public figure, so my life is a spectacle, unfortunately. It's kind of funny sometimes, enjoy it. But most of these people, like you said, that are behind the scenes, working in these agencies, their life isn't a spectacle. So people have this assumption that, well, they're serious people. They're serious people, so they behave in serious ways. They've got serious rules. The law barely exists. It barely exists other than to kind of as a social idea to keep people in line, but everyone's skirting around it. Everyone's violating it. And it's just as drama crazy behind the scenes in these institutions as it is within the public sphere like my own. Just no one hears about it.
Dude, there's a kid who ran for sheriff in Virginia. There was another officer who tried to just make shit up and blackmail me with this petty shit. It's like, congratulations, you'll be a big deal in the Maryland National Guard and Democrat politics in Virginia, you fucking piece of shit, And it was comical in DC at the lib school I was at, because they would do all this like gangster blackmail shit, and then you call them out and be like, dude, I'm gonna fucking break your jaw if I see you. Do I need to get law enforcement involved?
Yeah.
They don't have like honor even that criminals have, because like criminals will at least like face you and like fight you or whatever. They will be a pussy and do the stuff a pussy will do, and at the same time do all the gangs. You know what I'm saying? Like they're total, like there's no honor in them at all. They're the most scumbag people on earth. We're in this time of kind of hybrid gray zone warfare, right? Where it's like we're fighting state actors, right? We're playing leverage games against the Chinese, the Russians, and all these satellite states. And then even within our own allies, like you look at Poland. I was in Poland recently and Hungary. The State Department's doing more to undermine kind of conservative nationalism in those countries than it is to fight North Korea. So we're in this time of media warfare, psychological operations, economic warfare. And social media is like a huge fucking part of this. Do you think more people are on board knowingly that they're state assets, or just manipulated and controlled by the state without even knowing?
I think for the most part, it's people that are being manipulated without knowing it.
100%.
I mean, I think all of us are.
100%.
It's hard to,
that's been me.
I've sat and I've gotten so worked up about issues I'm seeing on my feed, and then I've been steam coming out of my ears, to a dinner with friends or, a church barbecue or something, and I'm bringing it up, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? None of us believe in this. None of us agree with this. And this is why, once again, I've blocked all of these kind of bot people from responding to me on Twitter, because I'm like, wow, I am being psychologically manipulated without knowing it.
Yeah.
And then, another one that like blew my mind the other day. This is because it is both the government warfare and private corporations. It's just whoever has an interest in owning your mind.
Yeah.
I see this very natural TikTok. Some guy's making it in his kitchen. So, you get the natural aspect of it. It doesn't look overproduced. And he takes out 10 olive oils. And he says, hey, interesting fact. Did you know a lot of olive oil is actually fake? They're just using like different cheaper oils, and it's not, so that they can make double the money on it.
The mafia.
The mafia is controlling it in Italy. And I'm like, whoa, that's super interesting because I'm a big health nut lately. And he's like, okay, here's the way you can tell if it's real or not. You put it in the fridge, and it's something about whether it becomes thicker or whether it kind of just stays a liquid. And then he's like, this brand, this California Sunshine olive oil was the only one that's real, not Kirkland, not this. And I was like, wow, I got to go buy that. And then I was telling my mom about it, and she's like, no, Lauren, I'm pretty sure the Kirkland one is real. Did the experiment at home. Completely different results than the TikTok.
There's probably some olive oil company trying to...
Sponsoring him.
Yeah.
Trying to make a viral video that looks natural so you can gaslight a bunch of people into buying their product. And I was completely fooled by it. If my mom didn't do that, I would have gone to the store and bought it. So don't think you're smarter than the manipulation. No. And I'm like, it's olive oil. What kind of government interest is there going to be in manipulating me around olive oil?
They've got like the art of war guys making cunning moves on olive oil.
They're making six figures coming up with these ideas of how to manipulate the population. And one of the big ones they've realized is it has to look natural. It can't be overproduced. So you've got even the Biden administration paying like Harry Sisson or whatever.
Yeah.
Farah Khalidi, I think. Her name was Farah. She's like an OnlyFans girl. And she just came out and said, the Biden administration offered me money to basically simp for them.
She has to do a night with Hunter, too?
She's actually a very clever girl. But
I wasn't trying to put her down.
No. Knowing Hunter, he probably tried. But no. But no, it's really... really interesting to see, like even the American government, Canadian government, everyone's getting in on this, Five Eyes or not. They're in on the social media warfare, paying someone. Everyone's being manipulated, whether they think they are or not. And you just have to be aware. I'm aware that I'm being manipulated. I don't know always. I try to be careful, but...
Well, we have to be aware, too, because it's not like, nilly-willy manipulation. It's like these are guys with PhDs at labs and like highly organized dudes that are... Their brain power is not of one man. It's of machines. It's of research institutes, of all this other stuff. So, of course, they can outmaneuver us with manipulation. I feel like you just got to know, I don't know, like what you can control, what you can't control, what's worth putting energy into and what's not. Because there's certain things we're just not going to be able to do shit about. It's like, all right, whatever. That sucks. But there is a lot of predatory shit going on right now. And, I think a lot of it has to do with the moral relativism, though. It's like, across the Western world, people aren't religious anymore. They don't have like an accountability system to a higher power, so they'll pretty much do whatever the fuck they want. You know what I mean? Like whatever gets them ahead and gets them power is what they'll fucking do, and it's like it's pretty scary.
I grew up in an evangelical kind of Christian home, and I'm very glad I did.
Yeah.
Because it gave me a very beautiful perspective on life, but I think that in some ways it prepared me to speak with and do business with and deal with other people who had the same moral system as me. So I went into a world with a beautiful moral system and was immediately shocked and corrupted by feeling unprepared for a world that did not share that system. And, if I'd stayed probably within my local community, I would have been a little less shocked because I kind of grew up on a Bible Belt area. But I got on a plane and moved to big cities, went to Toronto, went to New York, London, everything. And I met all these people with entirely different systems and was just like, I didn't even know, like, we were allowed to lie about stuff like that. I didn't even know, like, humans were capable of doing this level of deception. And, oh my goodness, what a reality check. And for a lot of people, especially young people who even if they did grow up with good parents, with good moral systems, that jarring betrayal by the world has made them jump into the GTA game themselves and say, screw it, this is what I'm up against, I have to become it to compete. And I've had that temptation in my life. I've had moments where I've become like that because it's just like, wow, it's ruthless out there. But you always got to try to come back to your soul, come back to who you are.
As a believer, it's not it's a tale as old as time, though, right? People haven't changed that much. It's kind of the same thing people have always been dealing with spiritually, right? And it sucks, but it's like what's the phrase? Ryan would know this. He's become a big Catholic since like innocent as doves, wise as serpents, or like cunning as serpents. So you have to be aware of how shitty people can be, but not lose your, And I feel like I haven't done anything as crazy as you have, but like going to Russia in 2018 when I used to have a clearance, spending a month there, going to Poland for the Patriots March, like spending time in some of these kind of areas where you're a target. I feel like across the board, honorable people respect authenticity. You can get a lot further with information, with respect, going into places that might be a little bit hostile and be like, hey, man, this is what I'm about. I'm not trying to play you, but projecting strength, not being a fucking victim. If you're a victim, you'll get rolled on. But if you're that's kind of why Trump was such an amazing diplomat, was because he projected strength and kind of did, through a projection of strength, an honest dialogue with people. And people respect that across the board. Gangsters in Poland respect that. Russian dudes respect that. Hardcore dudes in Mexico respect that. People in business respect that. And I feel like across the board, people don't like people that are, if you're doing business or politics, whatever, that are deceptive pieces of shit, because you can't trust them.
People can sense it too. There is a level of being able to sense it. I'll never forget you talking about that. Makes me remember when I was arrested in Turkey. And
you were arrested in Turkey?
Yeah. Oops. Yeah. They full on, I remember.
You've been to a Turkish prison.
Almost. So we were doing some filming on the border there, and I didn't realize it was a military zone. And like this huge military truck shows up, guns out and everything, like on the ground, take us into the vehicle. And I remember my security guard saying, as long as we stay with the military, we're okay because they can't charge us. And then I think it was a few hours in, the gendarmes show up and they hand us over to the cops, and we're like, oh no, it's all over. We spent 10 hours in questioning with these police officers, and we were facing jail time for being in a militarized zone when you're not allowed to, like 5 years or something. Luckily, we had this local fixer who spoke Turkish and was translating for us. And he kept making us laugh. Like we were laughing about the situation while we were there. And after it was kind of explained to us, you don't want to look guilty. You want to look like everything's fine. And so he was really helpful in kind of keeping us calm and laughing while we were going through this. But I was pulled in. They brought in like intelligence services from outside the small town we were in. And I was pulled in to a room with these like 5 intelligence agency guys, Turkish intelligence.
They're
and they're like, who are you working for? Like full on movie style, like which government? And I'm like, listen, there was never a time in my life more where those BuzzFeed headlines that were like, Lauren is just a useless joke of a person that makes stupid memes online, that I was like, that is me. I just make memes online. Like I'm a nobody. Like don't worry about it.
I'm just trying to sell my pillows here, guys. Chill. I work with Mike Lindell.
I am like doing nothing interesting, but it's almost too funny to even. I feel like people don't even believe it when I tell this story. Yeah. But there was a woman and 4 men, and the woman I think was like the main English translator, and she had to translate to the other guys. And she holds up a photo of me where I am wearing a full like niqab. I'm holding soy milk, and I've got a Karl Marx manifesto, Communist Manifesto in my other hand. My friends had given me this whole outfit for Christmas as a joke. And all of these Turkish guys look at me and she just says, explain this. How do I find myself with Turkish intelligence services having to explain my soy boy, niqab meme? I don't know. But I did exactly what you said. And I was just like, at this point, what am I going to do? I can't hide it. You know what? I hate mass immigration to the West. I don't think we're culturally compatible. I think that there's serious issues with Islam. I know I'm in an Islamic country, but that's what I feel.
They're like, okay.
They were like, all right, thank you. Like, I think even the woman looked at me and she was like, yeah, I think the niqab thing's a little silly too. Puts it down. Yeah. Just total respect for me, not trying to hide anything, not trying to pretend. And it's exactly what you said. We luckily were able to get out of that situation and not go to prison, but it was a close call. But yeah, definitely, no matter where you are, Turkey, anywhere in the world, you just be upfront. People
and
are
respecting their house too. You know what I mean? It's like when you go into someone else's house, it's their house. Yeah, I feel like that way with other countries. Like, hey, man, it's your culture. You guys do what you do here. I'm just a guest. You know
and
what I
that's
mean?
exactly what I told them. I said, you know what? If tons of Christians started coming in here and telling you guys can't live the way you're living, like, you guys wouldn't like that. And everyone was nodding. They were like, totally, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
And you know what?
Human respect thing.
They were actually pretty nice. They had this big painting of Ataturk in the room, and like one of those swinging lights. It was an older office, and I remember being told not to cross my feet like this because you're not supposed to point the sole of your foot at someone. It's like offensive and disrespect thing there. Yeah. And they gave us cigarettes and cookies and these little Turkish teas, and we started talking about Ataturk and this guy. He literally looked like a movie character. This like badass looking like Turkish intelligence guy, and I was like, oh, you know,
this is kind of a cool situation.
Yeah, this is kind of a cool situation, as messed up as it is. And I'm looking at Ataturk, and I'm like, oh, you know, there's a lot of what did I say? There's a lot of European blood in the Turkish people. Like, Ataturk's got the blue eyes and everything. And he just looks at me and like takes a drag of his cigarette and is like, no, there's a lot of Turkish blood in Europeans. I was like, oh, no.
That's hardcore.
Yeah. That's okay.
Was it pretty country though? Was there
beautiful? Beautiful.
Good food.
I like the Turkish people. I do.
Yeah. I've heard it's cool as shit. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. It's like, I couldn't live there. My ideology is completely different than their own, but very neat. I have a lot of respect for the people that I met there. Yeah.
I think, you know, you're a South Park fan at all? You ever get in the huge South Park fan? Now, there's not a lot of great comedy right now. And culture's militated to the point of absurdity. Why is there not better comedy? It is such a good time. Like, you have the homos for Hamas hanging out with, you know what I mean? It's just like everything's militated to this point of like contradiction and silliness and absurdity. And I wish more people would just make fun of the ridiculousness of the situation.
There's this guy in Canada that's just come about. He's the first comedian I've seen in a while that I'm like, wow, this guy's funny. He's funny. But this is a newer guy, Ben Bankus. Have you heard of him? He's so funny. He does all these bits talking about how ridiculous Canadian culture is these days. And we have like mass Chinese immigration, right? Yeah. So he was doing this bit talking about it's only white people that have to kind of partake in this bullshit progressive stuff. He's like, you won't find a land acknowledgement at the TNT grocery store with all these Chinese people. They'll look at you and be like, oh, Black History Month? Oh, yeah, we got Black History Month, and point to like the pictures of the thieves on their wall. Black History Month. Like, he's like, why is it only white people? And he'll make all these...
can't make jokes anymore. It's not healthy. It's not normal. And like... I went to like a D-list military school. I mean, we had guys that were like in gangs getting waivers and shit, and it was like not a great military school. The best bonding thing was like saying fucked up jokes to each other and like ripping on each other. There's like none of that now, and it creates too much tension where people are afraid to make jokes. Jokes break down tension. It's unhealthy, right? And I think no one appreciates it. It's unauthentic. It's unhealthy. It builds up tension and hatred. You know, like people need to be able to rip on each other and make jokes.
Oh, completely. And all of the people I've known who have been through the most dramatic, difficult life scenarios, like,
they're hilarious.
You know, assault, war zones, everything, like near-death experiences, the funniest people I know. Gallows humor is the best therapy.
Have you heard of this guy, Donnie O'Malley? He runs Vet TV. So we just had a guy that worked for one of his organizations on the other day, this guy at the Barracks Legend Foundation. So Donnie O'Malley started this like dark veteran humor thing to cope with veteran suicide. And he does these like meetups and stuff. And his whole thing is dark humor is therapy. And it's true. Like,
it is.
As someone who's been through, you know, a couple shitty situations, periods of time, it's like, that's what gets you through it. It's joking around and then being real and making fun of the absurdities of the situations, you know? I
have a friend of mine who just got back from a pretty crazy situation, but we were talking about trauma, and like everyone's got their trauma.
Everyone
right?
has it.
Everyone's got their trauma. I've dealt with my stuff, and we were talking about how at some point in life, probably around 30, when you're younger, trauma, like being upset about it, talking about it, you know, kind of letting it bog you down, you can look a little mysterious and cool. But when you hit 30, it becomes very lame. You just need to get over it, and you need to move on with life.
Trauma trophies are lame.
Yeah.
And it's a comparing thing where it's like they big dick each other with like, you know, like some guys, you know, my brother killed himself. Oh, yeah, I killed a bunch of people and did this and that. It's like they outdo each other with their trauma. It's the lamest shit on earth.
Yeah, it's so bad. Oh, I'm so... I did an interview recently just kind of about the trad life stuff because I got divorced, unfortunately, like many people. And, you know, I was talking about how, like, yeah, there's these things you learn online. They don't quite apply to real life. And as long as you're living in reality and you're not living in these delusions of what your life is supposed to look like, you can be a pretty happy person and you can find a lot of joy. It's actually living in the delusion and trying to keep up the image that is going to be more tragic. So I was kind of talking about, like, when I was trying so desperately to give off the trad life image, I was actually having a really bad time. I'm having a much better time now that I'm not trying to portray anything that I'm not. I'm just, this is reality. This is it. Much better time.
Things go how they go.
And the article was pretty good, but they had to headline it with, like, the woman who has so much regret, nightmare of a life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like the victimhood thing sells so much. Even when you're not trying to sell that story, like, other people will sell it for you. And it's like, no. Like, I'm happier now. That should be the headline, but that doesn't sell. So even people love selling their own victimhood and they love selling other people's victimhood.
That's the psyop of this generation, is victimhood. They love everyone to be a fucking victim.
Yeah.
Which is you're so controllable when you're a fucking victim all the time. The coolest people have been through the worst shit and they'll just never talk about it and they're fucking tough and get through it. You know what I mean? Like, it's they're kind of stoic about things. It's like, I don't know, maybe they talk about it a little bit. Like, I don't know. I don't like the whole, like, victimhood clout. It's like, I've fallen into it where it's like, you know, what would you know about this? I've been through this. And then you kind of give it back. It's like, it's such a fucking lame thing to do.
Well,
you know?
It's so hard because
we're so conditioned in the West for that.
We need to be able to talk about real life scenarios. But there is, once again, that desperation. It has to be framed as a victim narrative. It can't just be, so this is what happened. This is the reality of it so that we can process future scenarios. Whenever you try to put some sort of spin on it as, I mean, emotion is important, particularly when
100%.
Trying to appeal to certain audiences politically. That it's important, but there is a way to do it that isn't so obviously
fucked up and insensitive.
Yeah, it's two things. Can't be too eternal victim. Can't be too effed up and insensitive. Both of them are the same. They're the same. They're both.
Well, it's like the red pill is a reactionary to the feminine. They're both toxic in their own right, right?
Well, someone who is, like, eternally, like, F women, F victims on their timeline all the time. It's like, okay, you are clearly a severely traumatized person that has not dealt with your trauma just as much as the person crying 24/7.
I saw one of your posts. I thought it was fucking spot on because you've been getting just a little bit of shit from the red pill guys lately.
Yeah.
And
they love me.
It was like something like, I might be butchering this and you'll remember what I'm talking about, but it was, you know, the facts, you're talking about the facts don't care about your feelings thing. You're like, well, dude, women are more emotionally driven. That's, like, in their nature. So to ignore that in your arguments, you're losing a generation of people. And I so agreed with that. It's so on point because it's like, you know, that hardcore, like, red pill community almost denies facts and realities as much as the feminists do when they do that. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, why women? They're almost wanting women to be like men when they're talking to them that way.
That is what is so hilarious to me. I'll look at it and it's like, you have the right wing that are completely correct when they say women and men are different. Like, all of this left wing, women and men are actually the exact same biologically. They can play the same sports. Delusion. We know it's delusional, right? But then when it comes to the psychological aspect, which is equally extraordinarily important, well, women just have to suck it up and they have to, we can appeal to only men politically. Facts don't care about your feelings, data, statistics, 24/7, and women just have to accept that. You just spent, you know, the last 10 years trying to explain to us that women and men are different, but then you refuse to politically strategize in a way that you are creating content that appeals to men and women who are different. You have to, because the left are doing it. The left are trying, they do data-based content. You have Vice news articles that are, like, talking about stats and facts, and men like that. Mm-hmm. Then you have Vice news articles that are doing interviews with, like, recent migrants to America where they're crying about their kids. And this is why my film Farmlands did so well, because guess what? Most of it, there's some of it that's facts. 90% of it is the emotion. It's talking to people who had lost their families, talking to people who had lost their farms because of the racism in South Africa against white farmers. And I had a large female audience and a large male audience follow and watch that film. You can do both. You know, talking about feelings doesn't exclude talking about facts, vice versa, but the new right are just, like, allergic to political strategy.
Yeah. The Vice articles, do you follow Babylon Bee ever? They do some kind of funny stuff.
They're hilarious, yeah.
So I feel like there should be, like, a parody of Vice, because it got to the point of parody where it's like, these Syrian refugees are saving up for transgender rights with their gluten-free dildo factory.
Have you seen the Vice article comedy video where the guy he has a board that's
Is it like Ryan Long or someone like that?
Maybe, but he had a whiteboard where it's like, okay, a type of drug, like ketamine, cocaine, this, that, a country, Venezuela, this, that. And he just throws the dildo and then whatever it lands on, okay, Venezuelan, transgender ketamine dealers. That's going to be the Vice headline.
It's so true, though. I mean, they just got... They were so cool initially, like right
when Gavin
was there.
Them,
When Gavin was there, and for a little bit after there, they were still like kind of had that spirit, and then they just went off the fucking rails because they did such cool shit. Gavin's fucking cool as shit. I love his. He got wronged. All the shit they're saying about him is not fucking true. The guy's been through the ringer, and like I have mad respect for him. I think the reason they wanted to take him off the table, he's so fucking funny.
Because he had fun.
He's hilarious. You can't have
people that are having fun.
He's cool and hilarious.
Yeah, but even I really that's the main thing that I see in a difference between the current state of media and like what I initially went into in the 2015-2016 era.
Yeah.
There's been a massive memoricide of what the right-wing and conservative movement was, because now I see a lot of like really angry people, and I get it. The world has changed a lot.
But it's not healthy.
Not even fun anger. Like people were angry in 2015, 2016, but they were having fun. There were women and men that were both in real life attractive, funny, hilarious people hanging out together. And now you've got this like
pissed off neckbeard.
Pissed off, like women have left. They're like, you guys aren't having fun anymore. We don't want to be here. Most of the women I started with in political media are gone. And that's just a reality, whether we want to acknowledge, a lot of people don't want to acknowledge it. It's like, how dare you say this? Why are you siding with the left? I'm not. I'm trying to warn you that a lot of people are leaving in real life because they're not having fun. But when it was a time where it wasn't like, all women are at fault, all men are at fault, this, that. Actually, when it was all men are at fault, a lot of women joined the men and went, this is crazy. And now that it's all women are at fault, well,
it's like the infighting stuff too sucks balls right now, where it's like they're not being civil to each other. Like I'll watch Twitter of people I like, multiple people that I respect, going like scorched earth on each other. I'm like, guys, this is like fucked up. Why are you doing this to each other?
No, this
is like get on the phone, have coffee, get over your problems. Like, I like Kyle Seraphin a lot. Mm-hmm. I think that says interesting shit. I met him at the Turning Point hang. I think O'Keefe's a cool guy, quirky guy, interesting guy. He's done a lot of good stuff. Seeing them have at it and go scorched earth on each other, it's like, guys, this isn't cool. Like, come on, like, have coffee, like, get over it. It's not cool to us infighting. And there's a bunch of other people I don't really want to name that are just like really going at each other. And I like them both. I'm like, guys, like, get over it. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, it's immature. I think the internet creates this gap where it's easier to be like, you're a fucking piece of shit and here's why, and take like half truths and spin them. It's not cool.
This is another thing that I wish was more common knowledge is like 90% of those fights you see online, they'll be portrayed as some sort of large political disagreement. Like you're a traitor to the movement or something, when it's entirely personal. It'll be like someone's stolen another person's girlfriend or some nonsense, or there's been a falling out, someone's rejected another
100%.
person. 90% of the like... It's true. I know no one likes to hear it, but like 90% of like the massive critics I've had from my own side have been people that I have rejected for a relationship or something. And I'm sure it happens. I know it happens to men as well in the movement, where they'll reject a girl and suddenly she'll be like going off on Twitter about them. And they'll pretend it's a political thing. They'll pretend it's some sort of ideologically driven purity spiral, but it's a lot of personal stuff and people can't help themselves. And this is where I'm very much planning on taking a step back from that Twitter world, because a lot of it is just based in delusion.
Now. I don't feel good when I get on social media too long and I want to I'm getting good information or whatever, but it's like I feel like shit for like 3 hours afterwards. I get anxiety and stuff. It's not fun anymore. No, I think that's what we want to do with this project. We've got this fantastic production team that we work with. One of our partners, just this awesome guy, and he gets it. He's like, you want a positive, cool experience. He's a very faith-based guy, incredibly talented at what he does. He's like, I don't want to feel like shit after I watch something. I want to get something good out of it. And I think like, I want people to laugh. I want people to have a good time. I want learn something, enjoy it. Like leave watching that experience with like a better feeling and some better information and stuff, rather than being furiously pissed off and stressed out. That doesn't help.
And it's like, it's clear, it's so clearly delusion too, that's come from the screen and making everything seem like a video game, because these people that are fighting in real life, the second they got into a bar together, they'd be
getting
along completely.
They'd be cool to do like more like intellectual like meetups, like get people of like mind and like get them in one location, no fucking phones.
The new frontier is real life.
Yeah.
That's it. You have to escape the psychological prison that is the social media world.
There's this dope cigar bar near here. We had the guy on, Gary. He's like a businessman in Hong Kong. He has a rule. He's like, look, he's created this awesome environment in the cigar bar. It's beautiful aesthetic, like nice furniture, fine beers, cigars and stuff. And he's like, look, we're not a monastery, but there's women here, so don't like talk like a truck driver, no cussing, can't be dressed like a slob. And if I see you on your phone, I'm gonna throw you out.
Love that.
And people have great conversation. They intellectually engage, like types that probably didn't do it regularly. Like it changes their behavior and stuff. And it's a really cool environment. I'm starting to see more like clubs and members clubs and country clubs start to do the no phone thing. We're like, hey, once you're in here, if we see you on your phone, we're gonna fucking kick you out. You know, like it's a cool way to live. You know,
this is where the audience capture comes in, because even the average person is facing audience capture. It's the idea of being in the arena. The amount of people I've met up with that hate me online or are on the other side of the political spectrum, that as soon as we're in person, they're like, oh, don't tell anyone I love your work, or I really, or there are people that I have literally seen like typing the nastiest comments the day before, and then I met them at a TPUSA thing, and they're like, hey, good to see you. Can I get a picture? And I'm like, what is happening,
Yeah.
But it's just real life is where it's happening. This is... all the protests going on at the campuses, and you had these young frat boys offering $100 for this leftist protester to do a push-up, and people were debating whether this was like a horrific action or not. I was like, it actually matters whether the followers or adherents of your ideology are fit, look good, go out in person, can date. You want normal, well-socialized people to apply to your political ideology, because this is reality. The internet and what people say online, it's all fake. So if you are some like no profile picture person, like tweeting abuse at people, well, who cares?
Yeah.
Like what do you like in real life? Do you have a stable job? Do you take care of yourself? Do you even like yourself?
Is that to the neckbeard community?
Well, I mean, no, but that's the thing. That community of people who don't take care of themselves, unfortunately, they tend to occupy the majority of the political space on both sides.
They got the time.
They've got the time. They, and it's very much I know this myself too. When you feel overwhelmed by your own life, it can feel easier to fix the world, as backwards as that is.
Peterson talks about that, right? You can't make your bed and get your shit together. Why should you be commenting on politics, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you see this, it's like the state needs to enforce this, and they're saying the state needs to enforce that because they're incapable of enforcing it in their own life. They're incapable of achieving it in their own life. And of course, the state have caused massive problems. There's no denying that. But, yeah, there's definitely an external locus of control problem on all sides of the political spectrum these days. Yeah. I've got it. I've got it too. I'll get upset about something and
I
be
get
like,
there too.
We need to riot over this issue.
Yeah, communist fucker. Throw you out of a fucking helicopter.
Yeah.
So Canada, great country, great people. Where's it at right now? You got that little Cuban boy in charge right now, little boy. Like what's up with him these days?
Yeah, I ripped on Trudeau in the past for saying we were post-national state. But he was right. He did it. He achieved his goal. We don't exist anymore as a country. We are a tax farm and an immigrant paradise. I remember I was walking through like my local town, and I looked around and I was realizing that, especially in the summer months, everyone around me was like Chinese tourists shopping at these kind of expensive shops. And I was like, oh my gosh, we are like the Mexico where they visit and come and get cheap stuff from us and then go back home. We are becoming the third world country that they come to buy property at cheap prices at, or that you have like massive, basically slave labor imported to. We don't exist anymore. The city I grew up in, Vancouver, is majority non-white now. And that's not to be like, oh, we need a white ethno state or anything. But like I grew up, the demographics have changed so fast and with such different cultural and religious and language backgrounds that
it creates chaos and division.
Unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Unrecognizable. I recently did a video where I was filming at Surrey Central Station. I was born in Surrey, and or White Rock technically, but for every like 50 new immigrants I saw, there was like one local person that clearly grew up in the area, a white person that spoke English. It's insanity.
It's Aurora, Colorado's becoming the same way. It's like Islamabad there or something now. It's pretty sketch. And the aggression, just like you shoot the show with the Uber drivers or whatever, or at the Mediterranean food place, they're like super aggressive and pissed off. It's like, then why the fuck are you here? Why are you in Colorado?
Well, they're probably pissed off because they tried to escape, Islam back home or something, and now they've moved into a place that's just imported all the people they were trying to run from. You ask the average immigrant in Canada, like, what they think of it, and they're like, oh, too much immigration. And they're barely speaking English,
Really?
and they're like, oh my, yeah.
That's fascinating.
Absolutely. They hate it. No one hates mass immigration more than recent immigrants. They're like, shut the door behind me. I am trying to get the hell away from these people. What have you done to this country?
Yeah.
We're ruining the place. It's like a meme online. You'll see reels of like immigrants doing jokes about this because they just cannot stand it.
That's a good point. I didn't even thought of that, because they're going to have a different experience, and then that experience is getting robbed from them.
Yeah, I was just doing interviews on the price of food in Canada with people because it's like literally
Scary.
over doubled.
Yeah.
And I was interviewing this girl from Turkey, and she was like, yeah, I came from Turkey, and now I'm seeing all the same problems crop up here. Too much immigration. Like, literally, this was just a few days ago that I spoke to this woman. Every time I talk to these people, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So no one's happy. No one's happy with the situation. Chinese are buying all the property so that they can subdivide it.
There's a lot of CCP influence there with the
Absolutely. There's an incredible book by an Australian, Clive Hamilton, is it? It's called Silent Invasion, and it's all about the gray zone warfare that the Chinese are partaking in, buying up property, paying off government
farmland
officials.
in America.
Yeah, absolutely. They've bought, it's something like 60% of the property in places like Richmond is foreign owned. I made a joke with a friend of mine that places like Sydney or Auckland, New Zealand, you could snap a finger one day and the whole city is just going to be on hinges and flip, and it's going to be like Shanghai.
It's true, though. I mean, the thing a lot of people don't realize is the ones that migrate here are vetted by the CCP. They're loyalists.
Yeah.
You don't get to come to America and through legal immigration through China unless you've escaped through some back door, which is almost impossible. Those people are CCP loyalists that are coming here through the student, the student exchange programs, all that. They're all loyal to the CCP. And if they're not, then family's going to get in deep shit.
And this should be
fucking scary.
An issue that is like unifying the left and right, because
people are bought off.
Yeah, and it's not a free market thing. People will be like, oh, well, they can buy property. Well, are we able to buy property in China?
Communist guys that are trying to take over our fucking country and, implode the Western world, it's free market. Let them do it. Let them do it.
And it's like literally communist money stolen from the people. We can't buy property there. It makes no sense. Half the ads for real estate and, like mortgage brokers, everything, half the ads all over Vancouver are all in Chinese. Because they know locals can't afford the property anymore because it's been so inflated.
Oh, it was great. Like, even in the defense circles in DC, a lot of people are like, you talk to them when I was a young lieutenant, and they're like, oh, well, we basically lost. Like, it's over. They have like a really bad attitude about dealing with that, or on the dole or whatever, and the think tanks and whatever. It's like pretty in your face in that system. I remember one day I'm talking to it in the armory with some guys, and there's this guy, Sergeant Sim, who's from like Laos or whatever, grew up in like a militia there, and talking about the Chinese. He goes, oh, sir, you have to be very careful talking about Chinese here. They have everywhere. Chinese very sneaky. It was so good. It was so good. Very sneaky and cunning. You have to be very careful. It was like something from the Gremlins or something.
The one thing I respect them for is like
they got tenacity. They work hard.
Oh, I'm like, damn, I wish I could. They are, when you see like white nationalists on Twitter, like they operate like they're like, we will not serve you. You are not our people. Like you come into their neighborhoods in Canada and they're like, get out of here.
Really?
This is our neighborhood. And I'm like, what? And then they'll be like, they don't pay taxes. It's all like tax scams, all scamming the government. So like exactly what like They're creating a little
I don't
Chinese.
dislike the people.
They're creating a little Chinese ethno state, and you got to respect them for it. I'm like, damn, you guys are like, yeah, you're organized.
They respect
you're on each
who they are.
Team.
Yeah, I wish Westerners could do that a little bit. Maybe we'll get our shit together eventually.
Yeah, yeah, and they don't no time for any of the like. Oh, and this is the funniest thing about the mass immigration. Like all the leftists are like, oh, mass immigration, bring as many in as possible. It's like, okay, well, they don't care about BLM. They would literally bring out the whips. Like they don't care about gender equity or diversity. They don't want to pay taxes. They are like extremist. The right wingers that you're afraid of, they don't really exist. Like this Patriot Front group, that blah blah blah. Nothing compared to the Chinese immigrants you're bringing in. They are like hardcore.
Yeah. It's crazy.
They'll drop N-bombs like you've never heard before and not care.
I mean, that's like most other cultures. Everyone's like, Americans are so racist. Like, have you been outside of America before, bro? Yeah. Have you experienced other cultures? Because like most other people joke about things and point out pattern recognition. So
yeah,
where can we find what you're doing these days? Like, what other than Tenet? Like, what are you up to? Like,
We're really going to leave it on Chinese people dropping N-bombs. Okay.
Okay, we'll keep going.
No, it's okay. Yeah, you can. I'm doing a little bit of work on my own channel. I'm kind of reviving that. I just did a video a few weeks ago. I'll have a video on food security coming up in a few days here that you should definitely check out. So that's Lauren Southern on YouTube or at Lauren_Southern on X, not Twitter. I don't know. I still haven't fully accepted that name change. And at Lauren Cherie with 2 eyes on the Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome. And a little advice for the young conservatives out there, young people that want to get active, want to get in this space. Like, what if you could talk to yourself at 21? You're just entering the space. What advice would you give yourself? 90%
of the stuff you're seeing online right now are psyops, completely serious. Do not take it as any indication of what real life is or what real people think. There is some overlap for sure, but really look around the circles around you. Really talk to people, in meat space. And that's how you're going to get a real pulse check on where things are going, and be prepared for an absolutely ruthless political industry. If you want to get into it, you have to, you're going to have to work hard to keep yourself respectable, keep yourself, working with the right people, you got to have a good head on your shoulders if you're going to get into it, and do not think you know everything. That was my biggest problem. I went into it and I'm like, I've listened to thousands of hours of podcasts on politics. I know what's going on. There's so much to learn from real life, real experience that will never be reflected in anything found in articles, textbooks, or videos. All of that tends to be curated to a degree. Get your information from reality, not the internet.
Awesome. And one more thing, who are your top guys you're listening to, guys and gals right now? Like, who's your kind of favorite thought leaders and fun entertainment stuff that you're listening to these days? I've
kind of, we were talking about this earlier where you'll we were talking about Michael Knowles. I like his stuff. But you were talking about how you can spend 6 months watching someone's videos and then you can start to complete their sentences for them. So I've got a bit of that problem because I've been in this space 10 years now, and most people I can turn on their podcast or whatever and I'm like, okay, I know exactly what you're going to say. So I've kind of retreated to real life and kind of reading older books. Like I love reading C.S. Lewis. He always kind of grounds me in where I want to be going in life and spiritually. And I think it can be helpful when you're dealing with this cultural zeitgeist of deception on all sides for corporate purposes, for view purposes, to go back and pick up a real physical book and reground yourself in the reality before a time of such chaos. I'm not entirely successful in that. I'm a very broken, fallen person, as everyone.
We all are.
Doing my best, absolutely. Trying to always maintain that struggle and fight with God for my soul. And I can really say confidently that has always been a fight I've been having. I've never given up on it. And definitely retreating into reality and pulling back into some older books. Any of the Inklings, beautiful. Is where I would tell people to go right now.
Awesome. C.S. Lewis. So I guess we're going to go a little bit longer at this. So have you read the Screw Tape Letters at all?
Yes, of course.
So it's interesting. I wrote a book. The editors kind of screwed it up and took in a direction I didn't want to go. That was basically advocating that a lot of our problems are really related to spiritual warfare and less politics. That's kind of underlying theme of what we're dealing with. And I actually spent a couple years interviewing a lot of Catholic exorcists and befriending them and people in those ministries that know a lot about how that stuff operates, how cults operate and stuff. And are you a believer in that being a...
I am. I should read you really quick. So I've had a recent fascination in accounts on Twitter that seem entirely like dark. Like they'll comment and they'll just be like, you know, kill yourself, you evil whore, on like my posts or something. Yeah. And then I'll be like, okay, well, where is this coming from? You know, I'm a bit
we can talk a little bit about that offline.
What kind of person says that? And I'll go and I'll scroll through their feeds and try to find out.
On there.
Oh, I gotta find this post because it's really interesting.
They the narrative I got from a lot of the exorcists is that the media and the government black out a lot of the stuff on the cults. They won't talk about it.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the policy.
Okay. So this guy, he called a friend of mine like just
stuff.
like awful names, right? And I decided to scroll through his feed, and sure enough, I found some tweets from like a few months ago that said this. I'm beginning to lose all faith in God, not in a gay atheist way, just personally I feel almost no connection anymore. I don't want to forgive anybody. I want the suffering of most around me. Anger has been my default state for quite some time. Maybe time to fully embrace the demon. I wanted to believe in Christ for quite some time and tried really hard. However, I don't see any light around me. I don't feel the presence. Joy, love, these do not make me happy. Anger gives me more energy than anything else. I detest most of the friends I have, clueless effing clowns, getting fatter and fatter, ignoring everything around them, normal one-havers. All of this is like stagnant, filthy, still water. I want to be away from this, but I want them all to drown in it. Trying to be good, forgiving, tolerating ineptitude, burying rusty old hatchets, it's all so tiresome. I want the worst for everyone, for most of the world. Pain and suffering, well-deserved for their ignorance, for their wasteful natures. This is what gives me strength. To conclude this gay blog post, I am just tired of having to wear a mask every day, pretending for the sake of virtue and righteousness, whatever it may be. I'm just tired of this. That is a demon.
100%.
That's not a human soul talking. That is a demon talking.
They're getting that. There's a lot of good. The church has allowed a lot of good content to get out there, mainly from their exorcists who are vetted, chosen by the bishop, been through a school. Most of the people they see have to go through a panel of psychologists, medical evaluation. Most of it's mental illness, but they find some real cases once in a while, and they have psychologists to work with them, cult experts, law enforcement, and there's a lot of information you can get open source about that now that used to not be available, used to be kind of compartmentalized. It's, to me, that's becoming more apparent. God's allowing that to happen a little bit more as people have kind of pulled away from Christianity and are getting more into the occult. Their numbers are showing a lot more people are getting involved in that kind of stuff. But, you know, in the end, we win. You know, it's important not to be scared by that stuff or scared by some of these political movements, overwhelmed, that are inspired by bad spirits and stuff like that, and be positive, right? You don't want to give them too much attention. Is kind of what I've found, and you want to be joyful and live your life, and you know.
That's very true, but there needs to be an awareness. The response I wrote to this was, I find it's an interesting phenomenon that Christians believe in the spiritual, but don't often discuss its present existence in the technological realm, like how demons would be able to use technology for spiritual warfare. What would a demon's Twitter account look like? If they're trying to deceive you, would they really make it something you felt repulsed by, or would they use every single narrative you support to entice you? If you're right wing, I don't think, you know, your demon with the intent of leading you off the path is going to present as some blue-haired SJW. Of course, there are demons on that side too, but it's got to be someone you'll listen to. It's also funny that there's this massive amount of accounts on here that use Christian symbolism all over their profiles, almost in a way to mock it while saying things that are completely contradictory to what any Christian in real life would tell 100%. You, right? Their comments always dripping with hate on and on about like these horrible names, calling people usually on a repetitive cycle of the same babble and like truly a mirror of hell and its emptiness. It's, I say onwards that it sounds a bit schizophrenic to talk about this because most people don't believe in the spiritual anymore. But
it's changed though. I worked on this book for a while, and they were like, it's just going to be like a no-go, and the editors shifted in a direction I really didn't want to go and kind of scorched me on it, so I didn't release it. Now there's a bunch of stuff coming out on that. These books are getting very popular. I don't know if you were at Turning Point. Charlie was talking about this stuff. Tucker's talking about this stuff. He talked about it on Rogan. This is beginning to be more of a mainstream thing. I noticed it about 10 years ago. The Exorcist started to be public on YouTube talking about some pretty crazy shit. I ended up calling a bunch of them, befriending them, kind of cross-referencing data. It's legit, checks out, but that's kind of moved from that community to more the mainstream now. Like that's the Overton window shifted, and that's becoming more of a thing a lot of people are aware of. And Americans get very arrogant with their materialism and atheism sometimes. Most of the world believes in this stuff.
Yes.
About 2/3.
Yes,
especially
absolutely.
outside the States, especially in the third world. It's more in your face in certain areas. It operates different in different cultures. But I mean, I think that's when we get angry too at our enemies too, at the people on the left or whatever, we have to remember that like ultimately it's a spiritual battle, and we have to be, want the good for them too, as hard as that is at the time,
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Warren, this has been awesome. Thanks for coming out, and let's go get some oysters with the fellas. And,
Absolutely. I hate seafood, but let's go eat oysters.
Well, let's not get oysters. Let's do something fun. We're in Charleston, so thanks again for coming on.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.